And there's a knock on the door. Bam, 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 bam. Jump up, look through the peephole. It's blacked out. I'm wondering, is it the cops or is it someone pretending the cops come to rob me?
Right.
Run to the window. Look through the window. The whole apartment complex is surrounded.
Oh, man.
Go through to the bedroom, speak to my missus, and we're like, what should we do? Better let them in. We get halfway through the living room and then just boom! Big guy jumps up off the sofa. Who the F do you think you are, disrespecting our pills? Don't you know who we work for? One call to Sammy the Bull and we can have you taken out to the desert. He later on tells me that they had a bounty on me. The Gravano enterprise, yeah.
So you go to prison.
Highest rate of death out of all the jails and prisons in America. You can't go and sit with the other races on the tables in the day room. They had him in the shower beating the crap out of him. They left him whimpering in a pool of blood. And then this guy goes up to the main gang guy and says, look, why can we still hear him? You didn't smash him good enough. And the gang guy goes, yeah, we did him good enough. And he's like, nah. And he goes in, trying to crack this guy's head open like it's coconut. Just crack, crack, crack. This guy's getting carried out on a stretcher, and there's not just blood coming out of his head, there's yellow stuff coming out of his head.
Thanks for coming all this way to do this.
Thank you
show.
For rescheduling and seeing me. It's great.
Yeah, man. I'm glad we were able to make it work. It's been a long time in the making, and I know that you're not going to come to the U.S. anytime soon. We'll get into the reasons why at some point. So I'm glad we got to do it in person.
Banned for life.
Yeah, banned for life. Tell me what you grew up in. You were kind of a punk growing up. You're in the fake gang.
So the punk rock was like the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
Holidays in the Sun, God Save the Queen, all that kind of stuff. That was the first music that excited me. And then it all went dull, and then the rave scene started, and that hooked me right back in.
The EDM, man. So with the raves, and I love the rave scene. I wasn't as hardcore as you, but so tell me about getting into that, because that was kind of your entree into like, hey, this music's more fun if you're out of your mind on drugs.
So I was at a time of my life, I was going through social anxiety. I was too self-conscious to dance, won't go up and talk to women. I actually almost got beat to death by some drunks, and they left me like unconscious, smashed pieces of my teeth out, so I got these nice veneers on my front teeth.
Oh, they are nice and white.
And that compounded my social anxiety. So I was going through a bit of a stressful period of time as a teenager, and then this scene began. Like, prior to this scene, people had to line up at nightclubs and wear nice clothes, and the bouncers came out and looked at everyone and decided who could get in.
Interesting.
The young people just started smashing the doors in of warehouses, airplane hangars, wearing all this crazy coloured clothing, taking ecstasy and dancing to this new style of music. So I'm seeing this on the TV every weekend. It was on the news, all these wide-eyed ravers. The cops, like, trying to get it under control, but didn't quite know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I want some of this. I'm a mate. I was at Liverpool University studying business, and my mate out of my economics class said, you need to come and check this out. So we went to Manchester. There was a club on Oldham Road called the Thunderdome. Tried ecstasy, tried speed. About 30 minutes in, his face just lights up, and he's got this smile, and he like tries to get me to dance, and I'm like, no way, because I'm still that self-conscious person. And I let him go and dance. 45 minutes in, I'm just mooching around this. It's like there's people, lines of people around these walls, looking at this dance floor. Nothing's really happening, as if expecting an elephant to materialize. I'm thinking, what's all this about? 45 minutes in, my knees just buckle. And I'm like, oh, what's happening? I can feel all my clothes melting into my skin. I can't stand up anymore. I sit down. I just sat down like this. And then I just feel all my tension and stress and everything just melting away. I'm just sat down on the floor smiling. And people, I'll never forget it. I could just see people's jeans walking around me, and I'm just looking at them smiling. And they're all high on ecstasy too, and they've got the same smile. And you don't have to say anything. You just recognise each other's smile. And then my mate came, grabbed me up, and that was it. And I danced all night long. I didn't even want to stop to take a piss. I even ended up getting on the front stage. And after that, raving became my religion.
Yeah, well, I feel like we're selling it a little too hard. So stay tuned. If you were thinking that's for me, stay tuned for a little while, because there is a slight downfall that we should probably explain. So let's even zoom out from the rave scene a little bit. You start getting interested in investing, which is not, I know that's a non sequitur, but it's important here. What gets you into this? I mean, you're in B school, so maybe you're just like, I need to make some money. Stocks are where you make money.
So again, as a teenager, about 6 of us elected to do economics, and I had an aptitude, and the teacher could see this. Mr. Dillon, St. Joe's, Widnes, Cheshire, and he started to give me classes of my own. So he's opening the Financial Times. There's all these columns of numbers: year high, year low, price, day high, day low, P ratio, dividend. And I'm like looking at all this fascinated, and he's explaining what it all means. Around that time, it was Maggie Thatcher was the Prime Minister, and there was these ads come on the TV. She was privatising British Telecom. The shares were going to be 50 pence opening on the first day of dealings. That was the price you could buy them at.
I see. So this is a state-owned enterprise,
Yep.
and you're thinking, hey, they're going to make 50-cent shares, 50 pence shares. That seems low for the company that runs all the phones in the whole country.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
And she was handing the state silver over to her buddies in the city at a very discounted rate.
Yeah.
So I was allowed to buy a couple hundred, no, £100 of was it at that time. My parents wouldn't give me money because they hated Maggie Thatcher. They were hardcore Labour. And then my dad's like, we're not lending you money for that bloody Maggie Thatcher. We're not bloody Tories like your nan. And a light bulb went off over my head.
Grandma.
So went down to my nan's house, had a nice Sunday dinner, and hit her up for some money for BT shares. And I think we put 100 quid in or something, and it doubled the first day.
Yeah.
So I was hooked.
Yeah. Oh, man. If only you'd put in a little bit more, right? Yeah, okay.
I do eventually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I noticed that you just. So was it looking back now? Was it the high of the gamble and the win that maybe got you, as opposed to the fundamentals of the stock market?
It was like a new and fascinating world I was going into.
Yeah.
I became obsessed with reading about the giants, like the great short sellers of the stock market crash of the 1920s. People like George Soros.
Yeah.
I was finding everything I could possibly find out about George Soros and
Yeah.
hero worshipping him at that point of my life as a kid.
Yeah.
Michael Milken was another one. And I was like, these are the biggest incomes ever filed in the history of the world.
Yeah.
I could do this. I got to like get into this somehow. I've got to get into this. So I kind of like plan like the Chinese, like 10-year plan. I'm thinking I got to put all this effort in, and I'll be able to get to where these guys are eventually. And I want to buy my own island and go to America, make these millions, fly all my mates over from the UK.
Yeah.
They were my initial goals.
Buying your own island now is a little bit, maybe doesn't have the same allure, or I should say is slightly frowned upon, because the question is then, what kind of island and what do you need it for?
I did write
Epstein.
a book called Who Killed Epstein.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's soured the island image.
Yeah,
and stuff.
it's ruined private islands for the rest of us, unfortunately. Your audience, and among other YouTube audiences, does still talk about George Soros. However, there's a slightly different angle to the YouTube chats and comments about him these days. So, did you want to be sort of a legit stockbroker, or were you? Yeah, okay.
I wanted to be a legit investment analyst.
Yeah.
But my family members were in Arizona. So I flew to Arizona, and I quickly realized in the Wall Street world, it's predominantly stockbrokers because there's some very wealthy people, Sun City, Paradise Valley. So that's how I started out. I sent my resume off to all the local stock brokerages, and I wasn't aware at the time I was sending it off, but it landed on the desk of a penny stock brokerage, proper Wolf of Wall Street
yeah.
style, and that's how I started out, baptism of fire.
Really? So you're like, oh, I'll just join this perfectly respectable firm known as, I don't know, whatever, Linklater and Sons. And what was that like? Do you show up to an office?
You show
or
up
like a warehouse with folding chairs in
No,
it?
it was proper.
Okay.
Top of a skyscraper office.
Wow.
Full length windows. Had to be in the 6 o'clock in the morning sales meeting. All the rookies are stood there. The boss was like a mafia don. He's got these 2 powerhouse heavy hitters, like drill sergeants. You're only as big as these numbers on the board for the month. Smiling brokers make the most money. So we had to have mirrors on our desks to smile into. pacing brokers make the most money. We had to have like 24-foot curly cords. All the brokers like pacing all up and down.
Oh, God. Oh, right. No cordless phones.
No,
Right.
yeah. If you are calling your wives, if you are calling your girlfriends, other brokers are calling your clients. Lunches, other brokers are calling your clients. It was insane.
That is like boiler room.
There was biker gangs dropping off crystal meth and coke.
To the office?
Yeah.
Oh, for you guys.
No, for the office.
So you could stay awake and do your thing.
We'll get to how meth increased my production quite dramatically.
Your productivity? Yeah. It does do that, I would imagine. Yeah. Oh, my God. So how long did you last at a place like this? Because this sounds horrible.
So my first year or so.
Oh, my gosh. That's longer than I would.
What we did, I partnered up with another rookie broker. And we decided to jump ship to a more respectable firm, but we knew they would try and cannibalize our clients.
I see.
As soon as you leave, they hammer your clients as they stay with us.
Yeah.
So we came in every night and photocopied the entire office's clients.
Oh.
So we could hit back when they hit us.
Oh, I see. So they're thinking, we're going to cannibalize our clients, and you're thinking, you can try, but I got the phone book. I got the Rolodex.
Exactly.
Ooh, wow. I am shocked that they did not see that, know that.
They did, because there was meetings and they were asking about the photocopy of the counter, why it had gone up so much.
Oh, I see.
Me and my mate had to stay stum. And when we did move, there was kind of an escalation of, well, for example, we had clients that someone else had clients of, and the people who else had the clients of were threatening to car bomb the guy who was my partnership in the brokerage, and we had to go and buy guns.
They were threatening to kill him.
Yeah, and we had to go and buy guns.
That's somehow a very American way to handle the situation. We're gonna blow you up. Well, that's fine. We have arms. We're armed now too. So they didn't kill you. Did they try? Maybe not. It's not worth it for them.
We were armed, and we were told to back down from calling their clients, and we did.
Okay.
The head guy came and spoke to the head guy at our brokerage, and we were told to back down.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it was like two mafia dons keeping the peace. You don't call their clients, we won't call your clients. Yeah, and then you have to, like, I don't know, go in a basement and light an effigy on fire or something, and everybody's okay. What a weird... this is probably a dumb question. Were you licensed to sell any of this, or was it just like whatever?
Yeah, over time I had all the licenses. I had Series 7, I had the stock market options trader's license, and I had the branch manager license.
Oh, wow. So you actually studied for these exams and took them.
Well, that's another story. So, get to the office when I'm first applying, and he says, to make money, you got to have your Series 7 license, and to have your Series 7 license, you got to take the test. I said, I need to start making money right away because it was a commission-only job. There was no salary, but you got to take the test. I said, well, can I just skip the test? He says, you can't skip the test. I'll go and get the test book, and you can see how difficult it is. Comes out with this big old test book, slaps it down. I'm looking through it. Now, bear in mind, I've just done an economics degree, Liverpool University Business Studies. It's nearly all calculus and really long essays of complicated financial equations.
Okay.
He puts this multiple choice test book down in front of me. It answers that A, B, C, D. I said, look, this is easy. I don't need the test. He says, well, there's a section on trading options. Let me show you that. Shows me that. I say, look, I've been trading options back in England. Val Reef's gold mine options, South Africa, Gulf War, all these options. And he looks at me and he's got this intense look on his face. He's like, Shaun, I like the confidence you've got. And I've never in my life, skipped a test for anyone. And this time I'm going to take a chance on you. I've got a good feeling about you. But I don't like it when people let me down. And he just gave this big frown. He just gave this big frown, like... Well, I was so cocky and confident back then. I knew I could ace it, and I did.
Wow. So he let you work without taking the test?
Yeah, get on the phones right away.
Wow.
And he didn't seat me with the rookies. He put me at the back on what was known as the criminal quad.
Well, little did he know that you would live up to his expectations of you. Wow. That is such a crazy... I mean, it really does remind me of Boiler Room, except then when the guy comes in with the Series 7, Ben Affleck kicks him out of the room, right? we don't hire brokers, we train brokers, or something like that. Yeah.
It was similar. Strippers all the time. Any time for a celebration, I had a limo full of strippers downstairs. Bikers dropping off coke and meth. It was bonkers.
So you're staying awake all day and late into the evening selling this stuff? Or do you take
6
meth
o'clock
in the morning?
sales meeting.
Okay.
And going home at 9 or 10 at night
Oof.
from cold calling 500 numbers a day.
500.
You get 10 people agree to receive your brochure and business card in the mail. And then out of 10 or 20, one will buy and invest in the stock market.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
What are you screening for? Like people who don't know any better? Like, what is it a sucker that you're looking for? I'm confused.
So in the beginning, they just slammed the phone book down. And I started calling the Chinese names because I knew the Chinese people work very hard and have a higher average income. Their education is really strong and like to gamble. So I had a lot of Chinese clients in the beginning. Then I got hold of a list of America West Airlines bondholders.
Okay.
They had crashed. They'd gone from 100 par down to 5.
Okay.
5 cents on the dollar. So I started to call them and get them to buy more, and also to call my existing clients and get them to buy the bonds while they were down. If the company defaulted, they would lose everything.
Right.
But if there was some kind of restructuring, they would go back to par, which they eventually did.
Oh, so that was actually a good investment.
That was one of my first early hits.
Wow, interesting. Smart. Do you think your British accent helped people think, this guy's smart, he comes from England? Because that's kind of a stereotype we have in the United States.
Not only that, when I came to America as a teenager, just a normal lad from this chemical manufacturing town.
Yeah.
My aunt changed my date of birth in my passport, so I was 21, took me out nightclubbing, and was introducing me to all these beautiful American women as Paul McCartney's nephew.
Oh, man.
So can you imagine when these women heard my English accent, and they're like...
His uncle's a Beatle. That's ridiculous. What a wing woman right there. Not only am I going to commit a felony by altering your passport and taking you out for alcohol, which is super, super illegal on top of illegal, I'm going to lie to the people we meet and tell them that your dad is a billionaire musician, A-list celebrity.
Ironically, though,
Holy mackerel.
Towards the peak of everything, Paul McCartney does end up living down the mountain range from me in Tucson.
Yeah. Uncle Paul. Wow. But your friend kind of got too heavy into the drug scene, right? At work. The at-work, in-office drug scene proved to be a little bit too much for this guy.
He burns out, yeah.
Yeah. So how does that kind of happen? He just chooses the drugs over the work and just...
Yeah, he ended up owing people money, and he got in a car chase with the cops.
Oh.
He ends up in jail. He was limping around, and then he left the state in a hurry.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
And this is like your homie at the office?
We were like that, yeah. And I should have thought to myself, right, this is where that leads to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And my boss as well, when I was at a crossroads, I was already started to get into the rave scene, and I was experimenting with ecstasy sales. I was in my car in the car park outside the brokerage counting cash on my lap. And the boss's secretary was in the car next door. And she looked over and saw all the cash. I got called into the boss's office the next day, and he said, Shaun, you're at a crossroads in your life right now. Mm-hmm. You can keep putting in the hard work that you're doing and building on your success and going up to here. Or you can abandon that and go down this road of excitement and end up in hell. And his eyes widened.
Whoa.
And I didn't listen.
Yeah. I'm surprised that a guy who's running a questionable operation that is supplying you with meth is like, hey, I'm a little concerned about where you're headed. So I will give you meth in the office and strippers and booze, but I'm questioning your judgment.
All right. So by then, this was 5
bad.
This was 5 years later.
Okay.
So my boss by then was a different boss.
Okay.
We changed brokerages about 5 times.
All right.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, when the guy who's feeding you meth at breakfast is telling you you're making bad choices, that's a red flag.
No, he never knew about the meth, my final boss.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense. But so instead of thinking that's where this leads, you're thinking, well, that can never happen to me, luckily, knock on wood.
And I was having far too much excitement because
Sure.
I flew my childhood mate over from England, Wildman.
Yeah.
And that's when my whole world just changed.
So why do they call him that? He's an earned reputation.
Wildman had red dots in his head telling him to hurt people from when he was a teenager.
So he was schizophrenic, I guess?
I don't know how to classify it.
Red
Psychopathic maniac.
Yeah.
He grew massive in his high school, and the teachers were so scared of him, they had him outside raking leaves with the caretaker. He was picking teachers up and putting them into rubbish bins. He was fighting the bouncers on nightclubs when he was a teenager. He'd come home black and blue like a bus had hit him. That's how he got his rocks off.
That's strange. What was that guy's childhood like?
Well, he comes from a good family, and all his brothers are completely normal.
Oh, so he really is just wired poorly.
Wired differently.
Oof, poor guy.
And whenever he was going to commit some violence, his face would look completely calm. One eyebrow would stay flat, and the other eyebrow would just go straight up. And that's going to come into the story later on.
That's really scary. And you were friends with this guy, and he didn't ever try to kill you?
What happened was, I was part of a little gang on the streets.
Yeah.
Not like the gangs now, harmless.
Yeah.
We'd watched too many American movies like The Warriors and The Wanderers, and we called ourselves the Sweats. And the head of the gang was Wildman's brother. And he would not let Wildman join the gang. He'd beat him up and say, look, eat dog shit and we'll let you join. Wildman would eat dog shit, and he still wouldn't let him join. He'd give him a kick and tell him to F off home. So I felt sorry for Wildman because he was 2 years younger than me, and that's a lot when you're in your teens. So I splintered off from the group with him and his cousin Hammy, and we formed our own clique. And it was at the top of my town. There's a quarry called Peck's Hill, and overlooking the quarry, there's a tree we used to climb on, and we called it the thinking tree. And in the thinking tree, we'd plan our lives, and Hammy would say to us, Shaun, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I'm like, I'm going to go to America, make $1 million, fly you guys over. And when I fly Wildman over, I'm going to get him a job as a wrestler so we can fight Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. And then Wildman's cousin would ask Hammy, Wildman, what are you going to do? And Wildman would say, I'm going to prison. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. I've got red dots in my head telling me to hurt people.
Oh, that's horrible.
And both of those things happened. I went off to America, made the money in the stock market, and Wildman went off to prison. But when he got out of prison, I then flew him over. And this was 5 years into my stockbroking career. Got him a house by the George and Dragon British pub in Central Phoenix, thinking he'd just kick back and have drinks with the expats. Within a few weeks or months, we go over to the house, me and my girlfriend, one night. A bunch of Mexicans answer the door. And I say, where's Peter? There's no Peter here. I say, yeah, where's Peter? Where's Peter? He lives here. There's no Peter here. And they kind of like brandish guns, and we start backtracking, me and my girlfriend. Wildman just merrily bounces over the road. I'm like, what the hell's going on, Peter? We just got nearly shot. It's like, oh, don't worry about them. They're the local crack dealers. They like to move around a lot. I'm staying in their place over here. They're in mine. And I'm buzzing and they're buzzing because I can do $100 crack rock in one breath, and they're giving it me for free. It goes dingle, 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 sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. And it calms down my red dots.
Calms down his red dots? That's really horrifying.
Then he said, the guy at the back is from Colombia. He's running them and he wants to invest in the stock market.
Get out of here. This is my stockbroker, guys. Here's my crack dealer clients.
The next month, my aunt calls me at the office and says the house is headline news. There's yellow tape around it. Someone's being shot dead. You need to get your ass up there. You might be dead. I sped up there, got paranoid because I had drugs and stuff in the car. There was cops. There was a news crew. I went back to work, waited, come back again when it had all calmed down. There's blood on the doorstep. Go in the living room. Wildman sat there with a homicide detective with a very somber face. Talked to the homicide detective. He asked me some questions. When he's gone, I said to Wildman, what's happened? A couple came over to buy crack from the Mexicans, a female and a male. Because the Mexicans had gone back over the street, the female went back over the street to get the crack. The man stayed in the house with Wildman. The man had a gun. Wildman had never seen guns before. He said to the man, I'm from England. I don't know how guns work. Can you show me how to work? The man goes, yes, the safety's on it, pulls the trigger and shot himself in the head right in front of Wildman and died on the step.
Safety was not on. Wow. That's horrible.
Yeah.
My God.
So then Wildman said he was having nightmares, wanted to get out of that place. I moved into a place on the on the west side, with some females he knew from the drug community. They were living with this big steroid head doorman guy, looked like a Chippendale with this blonde hair, who's claiming he was gangster disciples. I put the rental situation, I fixed it. They said they were behind, so I fixed it, gave the landlady a check. Next day, the landlady gives me a call. Wildman's been evicted. I say, why has he been evicted? He beat his roommate up. Well, how do you know he beat his roommate up? She said the roommate was seen running for his life through the apartment complex in the middle of the night with plasterboard powder all over his head and face, and there's human head-sized holes in all of the walls. Fortunately, Wildman had done that so fast, I was able to stop the check. The females, one of their boyfriends in Tempe was behind on his rent. I fixed that, moved Wildman over to Rancho Murrieta, this huge apartment complex, where all day long Wildman invited in the homeless people, the gangbangers, the streetwalkers, Native American, trans, sex workers, striptease dancers, Russian Mafia, Mexican Mafia, New Mexican Mafia, and it was through him opening the door into that world I made the initial criminal connections that established the ecstasy empire.
It's interesting you roped the Native Americans in with all of those other folks. What is that? What's that all about?
Half my clique ended up Native Americans. The heads, as the criminal enterprise grew, most of the people in my inner circle who I trusted, about half of them were Native Americans. Acid Joey was one of my closest. R.I.P. Acid Joey. He was into LSD and ketamine, and he was found dead in his swimming pool with his clothes on.
Oh my gosh.
Wildman died 2 years ago. 29.5 stone, 6'2", absolute massive man from multiple organ failure from all the drugs he'd done and how he'd hammered it over his lifetime.
Mm-hmm. He died in prison?
Died at his house.
Oh, so
yeah.
he was out of prison.
Yeah, out of prison by then. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I have to say, in the books, I read all 3 books. The paranoia you get from the drugs sounds miserable, man. That feel like that would be enough for many people to quit. It's just got to feel the worst. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because it sounds so awful. Some of the things you sort of have these monologues where you're like, I thought this, and then I thought this, and then I thought this, and I'm thinking, that's no way to live, man. Good Lord, no matter how good that stuff makes you feel, that feeling would be awful. That anxiety.
When you've been up for days, you start to hallucinate
and
have paranoid thoughts. Now, there was an occasion when Wildman came over one time. One of my bouncers was a guy called Rossetti from the Rossetti brothers. And when I was telling Rossetti about all these Wildman stories before he came, Rossetti thought I was full of it. And he said, when Wildman arrived, he just picked me up and threw me around like a rag doll. That's how strong he is. So me and Rossetti was in the front and Wildman was in the back. And Wildman's been up for days. And I'm looking at his eyes in the mirror. And his eyes are just blood red. He's been smoking crack, smoking meth for days. His eyes are blood red. He's looking like the devil. But he's got this wicked stare on me. Like a paranoid, evil stare. And I'm looking back at him. And I said, what's wrong, Peter? I know what you're up to. Like, what's wrong, Peter? I know where you guys are taking me. Where are we taking you, Peter? You guys are taking me to the desert. And I'm thinking, if he thinks we're taking him to the desert,
oh man,
he's about to snap our necks.
Oh yeah.
So I did manage to talk him down. What we would do usually is we'd dose him with Xanax as fast as we could, put it in something, knock him out, and he'd wake up and he'd be mentally adjusted. But the paranoia does create intense situations. And it was paranoia between Wildman and my top sales guy, Skinner, who was also smoking crack and embalming fluid, Sherm, and doing all kinds of other...
What is Sherm?
It's like PCP, embalming fluid. You get it on a stick.
Okay.
And just...
Embalming fluid, like the stuff they use to embalm dead bodies. He was smoking that.
Yeah, it's called a Sherm stick.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so those two guys... Ugh. Skinner was like little brother. And when Wildman came over, he was big brother. And Skinner saw us spending more time with Wildman. And he started to... the paranoia between the two of them... Skinner started to scheme against us. And what happened was, when Wildman was in a deportation camp, because he was deported multiple times for being a menace to society.
Well, yeah.
When he was in a deportation camp, Skinner planned to firebomb Wildwoman's apartment.
So his girlfriend, wife?
Wildman's tough Liverpudlian girlfriend. Some of the people in our community were more scared of her than him. She was a tiny blonde. The cops have got surveillance of her running down the street with a giant fan, trying to smash Wildman's head in.
With a giant fan?
With a fan, like a big old fan on a stick, like you know, like those big fans.
Yeah, literally a fan.
Yeah,
okay.
one of those. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
Sid and Nancy over here.
they were,
Yeah.
The firebomb came through the window, just missed her face, set fire to some stuff, and she's got something on her face.
This is in the UK. Someone trying to kill her.
No, this is all in Arizona.
Oh my god.
Everything I'm talking about is in Arizona.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I'm just making sure so she was over here too.
They were here peddling. She was peddling ecstasy for me, and he was the enforcer, the chief enforcer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've already gotten into selling ecstasy at
Once
raves and
Wildman
parties.
came on his first trip, which ended with him completely homeless, living under a tree in Tempe Beach Park with a Rambo knife, a baseball bat, and a stripper who liked to have her private parts tased. Those two were like Bonnie and Clyde, just robbing clothes, eating meals, and going not paying. The cops got him, and he got deported from being a menace to society. But through the connections he'd established in Tempe, Acid Joey, these mafia people, I went on to build the ecstasy business from there. And Wildman didn't come back then until another 2 years.
So you're building up your drug dealing business. Are you still a stockbroker at this point in time?
No, I've quit my job, quit my house, quit my girlfriend, all at the same time, moved into a secure high-rise building in downtown Phoenix, and went full-time into the party scene.
What is full time in the party scene? What does that mean? Like you're going out every night, staying out all night and selling, or?
Well, in the beginning, I was getting ecstasy from LA.
Okay.
And I cultivated 2 to 3 suppliers. And pretty much exactly what you just said. I'm getting up, very late in the day, and I'm going out and doing the rounds.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like it would be fun at first and then quickly become not fun at all.
Well, it was fun for quite a while, actually.
Well,
but
maybe.
then it became intense paranoia and hell.
Yeah.
And you can't reverse that. You can't get up off that slippery slope no matter how hard you try.
Really? So you can't just sort of like get clean for a while and it's fine?
If you watch any movie like Blow, there is a story arc.
Yes.
Where there's the glitz and the glamour and the fun and the females and the partying and everything else. Then there's the middle section where you're at your peak now, but the competition come in and the feds come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the end section where everyone is so drug addicted and paranoid, and the cops have got all this case against you now, and the competition is trying to take you out or stamp you out or kidnap you, as in Sammy the Bull son tried to kidnap me.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
All these things going on. And then it ends in prison, death, nut house. You can't go back to the first chapters.
Right. That's true.
It's irreversible.
So tell me about your competition then. Was Sammy the Bull's son?
I had it locked down in Arizona with all the local people, because when I would pull up on the south side outside some warehouse in my twin-turbo spaceship RX-7 with Bose surround sound, Commander Tom just boom, 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 the ravers would come to me and talk to me, and they knew I had money, and they'd ask me to invest in their projects, and they nicknamed me the Bank of England. Now, these little cliques were competing against each other, and when they had differences, we would have sit-downs, and me and Wildman would adjudicate. But through all this process, we incorporated all these people into the criminal enterprise. Mm-hmm. We had about 200 local people working for us.
Oh, wow. That's pretty big.
So I had the locals locked down. All of a sudden, this new kind of dealer appeared on the scene, like a steroid head jock type guy with the leopard print polyester shirt. And I'm thinking, who the hell are these guys? Where are they getting their pills from?
East Coast D-bags.
Yeah. And they clicked up with, they had this other group called the Devil Dogs. These jocks who would beat people up and howl like dogs as they beat people up. I think they were like a bit nationalistic.
Sounds a little bit Nazi.
Yeah,
sounding.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, who the hell are these guys? So at the time, I was on to my third wife. She was doing lesbian internet porn when I met her. She joined a strip club because she fancied one of the strippers, and she seduced that woman, and they were doing lesbian internet porn. I'm thinking this is, the ideal life. I'm a testosterone.
This
charged-
story goes from 0 to 60 over and over and over and over again. Just in case anybody out there has not noticed that.
I'm this testosterone charged chap in his 20s, and I'm thinking this is the ideal life. Anyway, through one of my bisexual wife's lesbian girlfriends, they were, let me rephrase this.
We're going to have to mark this episode as explicit. I think that goes without saying. Some stuff, yeah, anyway.
My bisexual life was having a lesbian relationship with a bisexual woman.
Okay.
And the bisexual woman was having a hetero relationship with one of these new types of ecstasy dealers.
I see.
So through the women, they arranged a sit down at a bar called Heart 5 in Tucson for me to find out who these guys are. So I get the Rossetti brother as my bodyguard.
Right.
I say, look, go in after me and my wife. I don't know who they are. If they try and kidnap me or take me out the back, just open up on the mofos. He's strapped. To get a bit of bravery for this, I do some meth, chug some GHB. My wife chugged way too much GHB and had to be carried out at the end. But anyway, we go into the bar and there's this guy, stocky guy, and he's like, yeah, English Shaun, come through to the VIP room. We go through to the VIP room, there's loads of people in there. There's this massive 6.5-foot muscle-bound blonde guy, and he screams, everyone's got the room and get up off the sofa. So I'm thinking, I've got to do something crazy here to try and make these guys think I'm a bit loco. What can I do? And I remembered my grandfather, Frederick, who was rescued in the Battle of Tunisia by Americans, otherwise I wouldn't exist. He was left for dead.
Wow.
When my grandfather, Frederick, would walk past me in his house, he would always grab me above the knee like that and make me jump.
Yeah, yeah.
So as I'm sitting down with these
I
two...
do that to my kid, too.
As I'm sitting down with these two meatheads, I grabbed their knees above the legs and tried to make them jump. Anyway, the one
You just did that to these, strapped gangsters. I'm just going to make your knee do that thing you do to, a 5-year-old kid where they start laughing. That's effective.
So the guy who was nice to me, who had introduced himself already, he's like, English Shaun, we know you're a big name from the Raves
English
scene.
Shaun, that's your nickname on the scene?
It was back then, yeah. We know you've got a lot going with the locals, but why don't you start working with us? And I say, I'm getting beige presses from Holland, 100 or 125 milligrams of MDMA and clay.
This is high-grade ecstasy.
Yeah, we send testing kits out there from a website called Dance Safe to make sure we're not getting any bunk stuff. Because that's how people die, when there's bunk stuff in it. And so I'm saying to these guys, then, your coloured pills, I've got a reputation to uphold. I'm kind of dissing the pills.
Yeah, you guys sell trash. I sell the good stuff. That's why I don't work with you. We have quality standards over here. We got quality standards.
Big guy jumps up off the sofa. Who the F do you think you are, disrespecting our pills? Don't you know who we work for? One call to Sammy the Bull and we can have you taken out to the desert.
Right.
So I don't know if he's just blowharding.
Of course.
Oh, this is real.
Sammy's retired by this point, correct? Just out of prison?
Sammy is in the mix. What they were saying was correct.
Okay.
At that point.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'll get to that bit in a second.
Sure.
So I say to them, look, it's not each other we need to be afraid of. It's the feds. Since you guys have lit the scene up, going around bragging that you're the biggest drug barons in the world, there's undercover cars going through the car parks, filming everybody's license plates. There's undercovers coming into the raves, pretending to be people from out of state who want to buy pills. It's not each other we need to worry about. It's the feds. And we left it at that. And on the way out, we carry my wife out, me and Rossetti.
So she had done GHB as a drug, for those of you who are not familiar. So she just kind of, what does it do? It's sort of, it's like alcohol, but you need a couple of capfuls and it's like you've had 20 drinks, right? Is that accurate?
All right, so GHB, it used to be legal because it promoted muscle growth because you go into such a deep sleep. Now, you could get it we were getting it from the Muscle Boys at the gay bar. It's hugely popular in the gay bar because it also relaxes the sphincter.
Oh, God.
So
you know a lot about this stuff.
So
I was going to say I could use it for sleep, but now I find that it might have multiple benefits. Talking to the right guy.
One capful, You take a capful and you're high for an hour or two. It's not a big commitment like meth or ecstasy or anything like that. And at the end of that hour or two, if you're coming down out of it, you can have another capful and you can just coast for the night. It relaxes you, and it's good for other activities like, you know, you just...
Sleeping. He means sleeping.
Sleeping. But we would club drug cocktail it with other substances and experiment and vary. And back then I was usually on ecstasy, meth, GHB, and sometimes ketamine, and then I come down off the Xanax.
At the same time, so you did all the... Oh my gosh. Yeah. Your poor brain.
Frazzled.
Your poor brain, whatever was left of it. Yeah, so, wow. Okay, so you're in with these heavy hitters now. You're on their radar. Surely you're on law enforcement radar, maybe, but probably, right, at some point.
Well, the heavy hitters I was in with was the new Mexican Mafia. Mm-hmm. So when Wildman was on his first visit, he introduced me to some guys. By now, in Rancho Murieta, this apartment complex, we've got one building, an apartment is dealing, another we're storing cash, another we're after partying in. We've got this structure to it that's building up. What happened was we're partying in one of them, and a cop walks in. He goes, I could smell weed from outside. Nobody move. I'm talking to this ruggedly handsome Mexican-American guy called G-Dog, who is dealing the white and the green. And he just pulls out a cop to the gun and says, the only one who's not leaving is you, mofo. Everybody run. I've never seen anything this heavy before in my life. We all just run off into the night. I go into another apartment where we've got pills and stuff stashed, and we're like, what should we do? Should we flush our stuff? Should we flush our stuff? Next thing, there's a knocking on the French window. Bang, 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 and it's G-Dog. And he's like, let me in. He schooled us. He says, look, they can't get a warrant just like that. Turn the lights off. Turn the TV off. Nobody answered the door. Everybody shut the F up. And they did knock, and then they went next door, and we harboured him. We hadn't flushed our stuff. We still had our stuff. There was one cop car. By the end of the night, it all calmed down. They had a helicopter out and everything.
Yeah, because the guy put a gun to a cop's head. Holy smokes.
In the end, I said to him, look, because you're so hot in this area, I've got a house in Phoenix. Let's go there and shoot pool and do lines. And that's what we did. And at the end of the night, he said, look, Shaun, because you and your friends had my back. Me and my brothers have got your back. I had no idea what he meant. A couple of months later, he invites me over to his brother's house. One of his brothers, he answers the door, short guy, no hair, looking at me with this mean face. He hears my English accent, and he lightened up a bit. He's like, God damn, you talk funny. Come in and meet my homies. I go into the living room, and there's like the biggest Mexican-American guys I've ever seen. They've got the little wife-beater vests on, shorts down below the knees, tattooed out the chains, looking at me like they want to eat me. I'm, crapping myself. I'm looking around the room. That's the biggest TV I've ever seen in my life. They've got a TV watching the street. I did a double take. I'm like, hold on a minute. That's not an ornament. On top of their TV, they had a rocket-propelled grenade launcher out of a Rambo movie.
What?
Yeah.
So these guys are like real mafiosos, like Mexican Mafia.
I didn't know it until
guys.
They got arrested a couple of years later, and they were headline news. And the heads of the new Mexican Mafia, the most powerful, violent criminal organization in Arizona at the time. They tried to assassinate the head of the Department of Corrections. They'd assassinated witnesses, trying to assassinate cops, all this stuff. But there was another situation while I was still a stockbroker relating to them. So I get a call from one of my guys. This is the apartment we hid at. But G-Dog knocked on the French window. Two guys in there. One's called Seth, one's called Fish. Seth's dead as well now. He was one of my right-hand guys, big guy. Anyway, Fish calls me. He's like, look, I need you to get Wildman and Seth and come over here fast. We've got a situation. So what's the situation? I'd rather not say on the phone. So I go looking for Wildman and Seth, and they're collecting debts for the Colombian guy in Phoenix, so I can't find them. It's like 30 minutes to an hour later by the time I get to Tempe. Knock on the door. Fish answers the door of his girlfriend. Girlfriend's crying. I think, oh no, they've done someone's like assaulted her or something, and they want Wildman and Seth to beat this guy up. So what's the matter? They can't talk. They're like too frightened to talk. I hear this noise. Zzz, 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 coming from the other room. Like, what's that? You best go see. Walk into the living room. There's a guy that's previously been introduced to me through Wildman and the G-Dog and them. It's this older Mexican-American guy with this silver, stately, swept-back hair. He stood with his back to the wall, overseeing a bunch of Mexicans with cattle prods. And on the floor is a man naked, hog-tied man with a rockabilly quiff who's gagged. And when the guy with the silver hair gives the instruction, they electrocute this guy. He rocks like a rocking horse. His eyes are almost popping out of his head. And pee shoots out of his penis.
So I should not laugh, but that's a ridiculous visual. What did that guy do?
Right. I'm thinking, I've never seen anything this heavy before again.
I was not expecting you to say any of this.
I've never seen. I'm terrified. Right.
Yeah.
I look at the silver-haired guy, and he's smiling at me with this "welcome to the family" grin. So I'm thinking, I got to put a tough guy act on here.
Yeah.
And I got to not show any fear. Are they going to think I'm a liability?
Right. Oh,
so
man.
I say to him, "Wow, looks like you guys have got this situation under control."
Yeah, whatever situation there might have been.
I will tell Wildman that he's not needed, but I got to get back to the office because I've come over in a hurry. And the Mexican guy just smiled at me like, "Welcome to the family."
Oh, my God.
So I walked out of that room towards the other room into near where the door where Fish and his girlfriend were. I'm like, what has happened here?
Mm-hmm.
What they said was, "As you know, I'm dealing ecstasy for you, but I'm also moving product for them. That guy is one of my customers. He watched the place. He thought I had gone or had left, but I come back and I caught him in here. I called you first. I called you. I called them. They got here first."
So he was trying to rob the place?
He was trying to rob my stuff and their stuff.
Oh, they're going for the stash.
The stash?
Yeah.
But they got there first.
Ooh, man.
Now, I was worried on the way back to the office about the fate of that guy. But what eventually happened was they called his roommates and said to pay $10,000 or he was going to get taken out to the desert, and the $10,000 was paid.
Wow. Yeah, don't rob drug dealers. I mean, I guess that's... some people do it and get away with it, other people don't. Jeez.
Not if they're related to the Mexican mafias, no.
It seems like you always have to be so vigilant because you got to make sure people don't think they can steal from you. So, like, you're like this friendly dude by nature, I assume. I mean, all my interactions, you're not the same guy you were, but my interactions with you are like, you're like a funny dude. I mean, people listening right now are laughing or horrified and have turned it off. But yeah, you've got to be like, if you mess with me, I'm going to have you killed, which is not maybe your default kind of personality. So how present is that concern in your mind that you've got to put on a front or you will be victimized?
So when Wildman left, the two closest people he left me with were Acid Joey and G-Dog.
Okay.
And people knew G-Dog was with heavy hitters.
Right.
And Acid Joey was quite a big guy as well, because when I did set up my own security team, he became one of them. He was this very stocky Navajo guy, and he was brilliant at dancing considering his weight. He danced like in this fluid way. In fact, the first time I met him, I think it was at a rave called Chupa, and I noticed a circle of people watching someone dance so incredibly, and I thought, I want whatever he's on to be able to dance like that with his body size and structure. And I waited till he went outside and started talking to him, and I said to him, "You're on the good stuff, obviously. Where can I get that?" And he started to hook me up locally.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Is it not exhausting to be paranoid for good reason? Like, someone's trying to rob my stash. This person might try to take my money. Can I trust these people? These people are dangerous and kill people, but I got to deal with them. And then you're doing drugs, but then you get paranoid and you're like, no, but it's really, my paranoia is real, but then I also have drug-induced paranoia. And then you do some more drugs to get away from the paranoia. It seems like a self-reinforcing cycle, right? You're more paranoid, but the paranoia, you're also not delusional. Like, you are in danger. They are trying to come after you.
And you surround yourself with equally paranoid people who are all reinforcing each other's paranoid delusions.
Yeah. That's
so people are reporting things to you. Like, a guy reported to me that someone walked past Wildwoman's apartment who looked suspicious. And I ignored it, thinking he was being paranoid. And she said it, and I thought she was being paranoid. And the next day, she got SWAT team raided. So to be able to discern what's real and what's not real is really tricky.
Yeah.
But during that 2-year gap, Wildman was gone, I've got G-Dog with me, my main bodyguard. I've got this, I built up a team of bouncers now who are armed and stuff. And when Sammy the Bull's people come into the scene, Wildman comes back over around that time. And people are terrified of him.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go and beat him up. He would just move in with them. If you owed me enough money, I would have him move in with you. And if he moved in with you, all your furniture was getting taken out in front of your eyes and getting liquidated by the Mexican Mafia. You got a crack dealer and a pimp in your kitchen cooking up crack. You've got all the homeless people coming in, all the gangbangers, all the striptease girls, and it's just 24-hour insanity everywhere he went.
That's so interesting. So instead of being like, I'm going to break your legs, you're like, I'm going to give you the roommate from hell.
Yes.
And it's like, here's your money. Get him out of here.
Several houses were blown up, set fire to, not even on purpose.
No, just through sheer negligence. Yeah.
Sheer mayhem.
Oh, my God. Like, get this guy out of here. 3 days later, here's your money. I sold a kidney. Get this guy the hell away from me.
Everybody moved out of their own house after he was in.
Yeah.
There was only one girl who stayed. And she was a very tough girl who worked with me. And she had him walking her dogs and was bossing him around. She was unique.
God.
Tough New Yorker.
Towards the end of your first book, you kind of you have this sort of, is it a reckoning? You talk about how messed up your life is at this point.
This is party time.
You told me to read them in a specific
party
order.
time, hard time, prison time. Yeah.
So this is I don't know if this was your first book, but it's the first one you told me to read first.
Okay.
So there's a time when you're, I think, in Mexico, or you've just gotten back from smuggling drugs from Mexico to the U.S., and all your friends are super strung out, super paranoid, and you sort of reflect on your life about how this was supposed to be like a temporary phase and how lost you are. Can you tell me about that period of your life?
Yes. So there was all this mayhem with Sammy the Bull's crew, and then they got arrested. The new Mexican Mafia guys got arrested. I think I'm going to get arrested next. I meet this woman. She sees who I'm, associated with, and she's like, these people are scary, Shaun.
Yeah.
If you love me, you'll get out of that. And I stopped the importation. I was in college doing Spanish classes.
Okay.
I was going to the gym. I was doing kickboxing classes, trying to get into shape. And I was back trading the stock market.
So you kind of made a pretty decent recovery.
And we were planning to move to LA to get away from where we were so hot.
Moving to LA to get away from drugs and partying is a questionable decision, but...
All right, just a quick break. I'm going to tell you about something that'll actually make your life easier. If you're thinking about starting a business or you already have one and maybe logo or branding design is not your strong suit, you're going to love Design.com. With Design.com, creating a standout logo is as easy as it gets. You just pop in your business name and your industry, and in seconds, you're going to get thousands of custom logos to choose from. Every design is handcrafted by top designers and exclusive to Design.com, so you're getting something unique. Once you find a design that you like, you can customize the fonts, the colors, the layouts to make it yours. Then you download all those assets and you're good to go. And Design.com doesn't just stop at logos. They've got tools to help you create all of your branding materials, from website to social media posts to business cards, all perfectly aligned with your brand. If you already have a logo, you can upload it and you get instant access to thousands of design templates that actually match your brand's look and your color scheme. So this tool saves you a lot of time. It lets you focus on growing your business instead of getting stuck in the weeds with marketing materials. With a 4.8-star Trustpilot rating, Design.com is legit amazing. It's run by a friend of mine. The company's been around for a while. They really do care about their customers. Try it for free at design.com/Jordan. That's design.com/Jordan.
It seems like there was a moment or a phase of your life where you felt lost and out of control. It seems like you plowed through that pretty well, though. Or not.
All right. I quit the importation.
Right.
But I hadn't quit going out on the weekend partying with my mates. I couldn't. My inner demons, I didn't address them until years later through therapy and philosophy and psychology and yoga and meditation. So I didn't understand the psychodynamics of what was going on. I still had to get high every weekend. The walls were howling for me to come out and party, and I would leave my girlfriend at home, go out with Wildman, go out with G-Dog, getting high in Tempe.
And is it Claudia, I think?
Claudia, yeah.
And you meet her family and they're this like normal, functional family.
Yeah.
And I think
God bless them.
In the book you have this moment where you're like, who am I? Right? Am I you feel like you're a normal guy who's a stockbroker. but I have a secret life that's really shitty where I'm a drug dealer. How do you? There's a lot of tension having those two people exist in the same brain, basically.
Yeah, when you're living double lives.
Yeah.
It's very stressful.
Yeah.
Yes.
And drugs probably alleviate some of that stress temporarily, but they make the overall situation worse.
Over time, the pleasure of drugs goes down because you're always trying to get back to where you started.
Yeah.
But the pain, the side effects is rising in the background. And they cross, but if you're addicted, you can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still taking drugs, even though the side effects is up here, hoping you get back to here. But you're just burning yourself out. This is why most of my mates are dead.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the people from the book, when I was like writing these names down, I was like, oh, I got to ask about this person. But then by the end of book 3, it's like dead, 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 dead. This person vanished. We think he's maybe okay. We're not sure. Dead, 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 alive. But now you're updating me. Actually, he died a couple years ago after the book was published, right?
Yeah.
So this is not a... You set up this... There's a timer running on your life that just starts going maybe faster and faster. You just can't see the clock.
Yeah. One of the most dangerous situations then was with Sammy the Bull's son.
Yeah.
So the ecstasy ring... Mike Papa was running this ecstasy ring, one of these steroid hijack guys.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy the Bull moves to Tempe with his family in witness protection after testifying against Gotti.
Right.
Papa brings in Gerard Gravano and Karen Gravano, the kids of Sammy. Sammy starts acting in an advisory capacity. He doesn't know what's going on the street level.
Mm-hmm.
One of the evidences against him is a call where Gerard asks for money for gas. And Sammy says, yeah, I'll send you money for gas. But that's Sammy putting money into the ecstasy ring.
Mm.
When I got arrested, this was May 16, 2002, in Towers Jail, Maricopa County, I finally met Gerard Gravano.
In prison?
In the Maricopa County jail system.
Oh, I see.
In the beginning. The guards chained him to Wildman to see what would happen.
They didn't like him either, apparently.
They knew from the news there was a beef.
Oh, so
Guards
they
like
were...
to create situations
They're
of their own.
stirring the shit. Oh, interesting.
Wildman's looking at me like, what should I do? Do you want me to do him in? And I'm like, no, let's talk to him and see, how his case is going, because his case started a couple of years before ours. We're talking to him all night long because they wait up for court the night before. You're in court the next day. You're in transportation all day. And he later on tells me that they had a bounty on me. And we were in a strip club.
Who had a bounty on you?
The
Gravanos.
The Gravano Enterprise, yeah. They had a bounty on me. And we were in a gay bar called the Crowbar in Central Phoenix. Me, Wildman, G-Dog, Wildwoman, and about a dozen more people. And they advised me to leave. They said it's getting a bit moody. And we left.
In the bar?
Yeah.
I feel like you should take off.
Yeah. But what I didn't know was a striptease girl had called in for the bounty to the Gravanos. They got an armed crew that were on the way to come and try and take me out to the desert and hold me for ransom.
Wow.
And they said if the ransom wasn't paid, they were just going to eliminate the competition.
Yeah.
That's what he told me. We've got a documentary coming out on a huge American network in August of this year.
Oh, man.
Where they've filmed me and my family. They came to the UK. They've gone and filmed Sammy the Bull and his family. And this is going to be one of the stories in it. They've also interviewed people who work for me and my detectives.
How did you get caught at first? You said you were in the jail system, but what was you getting caught? What was that like? When did that happen?
So, 10 witness statements were made to the police against me. One was from a house Wildman had destroyed in Mexico after he'd blown up another house in Mexico. Some of them were people who worked for Sammy the Bull. And one of them was Skinner. So none of them had the inside scoop on the organisation except for Skinner, who's my sales guy. So Skinner had got so scared of Wildman after we realised he'd firebombed Wildwoman's apartment. Skinner got so paranoid that he went to the cops and then left the state. And later on in jail, there was a guy called Joey Crack, who was one of my co-defendants, and he was telling me stories. And he said he showed up at Skinner's apartment, and Wildman had found out where it was, and he was in there. And Wildman just grabbed his neck, thought it was Skinner. And Joey Crack was like, it's Crack, don't kill me, don't kill me. And Crack said, Wildman had sweat just running down his face, dripping off his ears. And he had every known weapon laid out, like hammers, golf clubs, knives, baseball bats, everything. So Skinner was the one who gave the inside scoop. May 16th, 2002. I'm on my computer up in the morning trading options, and there's a knock on the door. Bam, 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 bam. Jump up, look through the peephole. It's blacked out. 10B, please, we got a warrant. Open the door. I'm wondering, is it the cops, or is it someone pretending the cops come to rob me?
Right.
Run to the window. Look through the window. Shit, the whole apartment complex is surrounded.
Oh, man.
Go through to the bedroom, speak to my missus, and we're like, what should we do? Better let them in. We get halfway through the living room, and then just boom! Door just flies off the hinges, and they come in. Hands above your heads! Don't move! Get on the effing ground now! Put your hands above your head! Ah! And it's like, have you ever been through a SWAT team raid?
No. No, not from the perspective, actually. I should say yes, but not from the perspective of the person who has the gun pointed at them, generally. No.
So you see all these visors and these very intense eyes behind these visors.
There's some lights, some bright lights.
You know,
Yeah.
if you make a mistake, your life's over in seconds.
Yeah.
Time kind of freezes. And then they just jump on you and crush you. And one of the detectives just grabs me up, gets in my face. He's like, English, Shaun, you're a big name from the rave scene and we've got you. I have no idea who this guy is at this point, but he knows full well.
You've been his life for 3 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From the police paperwork that I read later on, he's like sat next to me in restaurants and everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was his moment where he was like, "Oh, that was the payoff."
Yes.
he had a few drinks that night for sure.
Yeah,
finally cracked
they
it
were
in.
celebrating. Yeah,
Man, okay, so you go to prison. By the way, the prison stuff is so gross. We'll get into some of that, but even in the beginning, you're like, "There's something called prison itch." Tell me about this.
So there's Durango foot rot, whereby if you go in the shower without your shoes,
Oh man.
your foot just ends up getting fungus on it and turning green and stuff. It's almost 120, 130 degrees in the summer in Arizona on the American scale.
Yeah.
So there's a tiny vent called a swamp cooler vent at the back of the cell. The air coming in it was like as warm as baby's breath. The only time it worked was when the county health inspector walked through the building, and then it went back to the broken setting.
Mm-hmm.
So we're being cooked alive in a concrete oven, and it wreaks havoc on your skin.
Yeah.
You get all these skin infections that itch and bleed. It looked like I spilt battery acid on my leg at one point. You get these bed sores on your behind because you sat around a lot. Now, at night when you're trying to sleep, you're basically just rotating on your bunk in a pool of sweat.
Ugh.
And the itchiness from these skin infections and bed sores is keeping you awake all night. But if you scratch yourself, because you're sweating constantly day out after day, the outer layers of your skin turn soggy. So you get this itchiness, scratch yourself, and clumps of your own skin detach under your nails.
Oh my God, that's really awful.
Yeah.
That's really, and everyone has this, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, people were just getting naked and throwing buckets of water on each other to try and cool down.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That's truly awful.
And then there was the insects. There was a spider called a brown recluse, and it would come out at night looking for food, and you roll around and you sleep, you touch it, it'd get you. You wouldn't even see it, just wake up the next day with little pinpricks on your skin, no big deal. In the following days, the pus would start to come out, and the venom, it eats into your flesh, down to the bone on some occasions, and causes what's called a volcano lesion. There were guys in the jail who'd been in shootouts, and these spider bites are putting bigger holes in people's bodies than bullets. And we say to the guards, this guy's got to go to the doctor, take him to medical. It's the policy of the jail not to treat insect bites. You put yourself in here, you deal with it. So there was a guy called Alejandro. He'd done a drive-by shooting, teenager. And every night he'd get up and watch the news because he might be up for the death penalty if one of his victims died. One girl got a bullet through her back, came out the front and took her nipple off. And all these people were in critical condition. So every night he'd go up and watch the news. Anyway, he got bit. And it looked like a baseball of yellow plasma was trying to come out of his back.
Oh, man.
Guards wouldn't take him to medical. So in the day room, big guys arm locked him on either side to hold him steady. There was a Russian guy in there who'd been in the military and said he knew how to dress wounds. He comes up behind Alejandro and he's massaging this guy's back, and all this pus is running down the back. And I'm mopping it up with the toilet paper. This is going on for about 10 minutes. Big guy's almost fainting. Sweat dripping off his ears, off his chin. We need more guys to hold him.
Because it hurts so bad.
Other guys are jumping on to hold this guy. When all the pus was finally out, what the Russian guy said the best thing you could do for him was put salt on the wound to reduce the bacteria.
Oh my God. This is like Stone Age. This is how you treat a wound in Afghanistan or something like that.
Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's toughest sheriff.
So you were in this notoriously horrible U.S. prison, and that he later was, I think, either in prison or convicted of.
He was convicted of racial profiling and contempt of court, but Trump pardoned him.
Right.
So he was looking at 6 months in his own jail, but he got away with it.
Oh, so that would have been poetic. 6 months isn't even that long. And you mentioned the food in this prison was like not real food almost.
Breakfast was moldy bread and green bologna.
Green.
Yeah.
Not supposed to be green, just happens to be green.
Raw sausage meat that's got this green shine to it.
Oh.
And then the mold on the bread, blue-green. Sometimes it had these fantastic psychedelic colours that looked like works of art. And we'd scratch the mold off the bread. We were that hungry. Or if the bread was stale, put it in water and swill it to get it down. Evening meal was a mystery meat slot we called Red Death.
Red Death.
It looked like carroty vomit blended with blood. All kinds of random meat in it, and it stunk. Occasionally there was a dead rat in it.
Oh.
One time we gave a rat back to the guards, and they said they would investigate, and they came back and said it was just a potato, so the jail couldn't get any trouble. Sheriff Joe, one of his favourite quotes, "It costs us more to feed our police dogs than our prisoners. 50 cents or less per day to rotten food. And our police dogs are working for a living."
I see.
Yeah.
That's horrifying. Yeah, you mentioned the banned toothpaste from China.
Oh.
What was that? How is it banned? It wasn't banned if you had it, I guess.
If you Google Amer Fresh toothpaste, AMER Fresh, it will come up. I think it was a case in Prison Legal News or something that it had antifreeze or something in it. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So all this toxic stuff, they're just disposing of it onto the prisoners.
Basically, they're torturing you guys
Yes.
in there. Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of people won't have any sympathy for prisoners. However, there's a level of humanity that you should generally afford somebody, especially non-violent criminals.
You got the guards murdering the prisoners.
Yeah?
Brian Crenshaw, Scott Norberg. You got a blind guy, failed to produce his ID for the evening meal. They pulverized him, put him into a coma, and he died over a month later. Scott Norberg, mentally ill man, wandered the neighborhood. They started beating him up. His face is turned blue. A female guard says, "Stop it, his face is turned blue." And they just kept beating him. The prisoners were yelling, "Why are you still beating him? He's already dead." And they were still beating the corpse. And people can Google them and research it, and they were lawsuits that were settled.
Yeah, we'll link to some of this in the show notes. It's quite horrifying, actually. Tell me about introducing yourself to the gangs, because that was one of the first things you told me on the phone. Is you have this like. You have no choice. You have to introduce yourself to the gangs. You can't just be like, I'm not playing that game. You play their game.
Well, they introduce themselves to you, depending on what colour your skin is.
Okay.
So as soon as I go in, you've got these neo-Nazis from the Aryan Brotherhood who are low-level guys at this stage. They've got Hitler on them. They've got swastikas. They've got lightning bolts, SS. One guy even had Hitler Sieg Heiling over a gas chamber with Jewish people dying inside the gas chamber.
Oh, wow. That's a class act.
These are some of the early interviews, early tattoos that I saw on these guys. And I'm like, holy shit. So they're like, hey, get in that cell over there kind of thing. Go in the cell, close the door behind me so I can't get out. 3 of them, I'm trapped. They're like, what are your charges? So my charges on a printout from the jail. It's all legal terminology. I don't even understand what it means. So I say to them, I don't know what my charges mean. this is not a good answer.
Right, because they think you're hiding something, right? So I assume it's like they're making sure you're not like a pedophile kind of guy that they have to murder at that point. Or,
Yeah, but I didn't-
does that happen? Do they
Yeah.
kill pedos?
Yes.
Because you hear like, oh, they just go into segregated protective custody. Nothing ever happens.
But some of them try and go undercover in general pop, and it is KOS if they get outed. And I've got a couple of stories of that.
KOS, kill on sight.
Yeah, I've got a couple of stories of that happening if you want those, and they're really brutal.
Yeah.
So I say I don't know what my charges mean. Now they got me against the wall. Like, what the F do you mean you don't know what your charges mean? Are you a chomo? I don't even know what a chomo is.
Mm-hmm.
Pull out my charge sheet. They make me show it them.
Oh, chomo, child molester.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
see. I'm
Crime
happy I figured that.
syndicate, continuous criminal enterprise, conspiracy, bail bond, $750,000. Like, damn, you guys, the mafia, or what? $750,000 bond? And they loved that.
Yeah.
It kind of like, the atmosphere changed right away. And I'm like, no, we're not the mafia. We're doing Raves, ecstasy. One was like, yeah, I killed someone at a rave who was on GHB. And so they then explain the rules. If anyone calls you a punk, a bitch, or hits you, you must fight them on the spot, or else the whole gang will attack you.
Because you're a bad representation or something? Like
That's the rule. Your whole race will attack you if you don't defend yourself if someone hits you or calls you a punk or a bitch.
Because
It's automatic you're going to get battered by everyone.
and people are going to go, why is that? But it seems functional, right? Because if you can get away with it, then it's going to happen more. So your job is to make sure nobody gets away with it.
If someone calls you a punk or a bitch, you have to go in the cell under the stairs and fight them right away. Otherwise, every one of your race is going to batter you.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
So that's the first rule they told me. Then you can't go and sit with the other races on the tables in the day room. So there's 45 men in an area designed for 15. They've got these octagonal seats and tables bolted to the floor. There's a crappy old TV on the wall. You got the blacks, the Mexicans, the Mexican Americans, and the there's four actually. The whites,
Yeah.
the woods. Yeah. They're the four gangs. So you can't go and sit at the table of the races. You can't go making friends with the guards. They'll smash you for snitching. So there was an early occasion where I was working out with a guy called Sniper. He was a La Victoria gang member out of Tempe, working out with Sniper, and he's a Chicano, Mexican-American. The neo-Nazis say to me while I'm working out with this guy, hey, Wood, we want a word with you. I look at Sniper. Go talk to your people. Go in the cell with them again. Like, Wood, what do you think you're doing right now? I'm like, I don't know, having a working out, you know. Take a look around the day room. Do you see any of the white boys working out with the other races? Nope. You got a lot to learn, Wood. Now finish your workout. At least they were being polite with me.
Yeah.
And that was because Wildman was in there as well. I wasn't allowed in the same tower as him, but they knew he was with me. And he'd already established himself.
I see.
Yeah.
So he gave you a little bit of clout, like, this is my guy.
He was a good man to get arrested with.
I bet. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
It's like your lucky charm, I guess.
Yeah.
So what does happen to the pedophiles in prison? I thought they just went into segregated, or what do you call it, protective custody. They hang out with each other at the end. You said someone would try to get out of there?
All right, so the prison system is, there's all these complexes, and they do have their own prisons now. But when they go court, or they're in transportation, or if they're trying to go undercover in general population, it enables people to get access to them and do things, which does happen quite a lot. So, for example then, a guy who come in with me was suspected of something.
Mm-hmm.
They had him in the shower beating the crap out of him. They left him whimpering in a pool of blood. And then this guy goes up to the main gang guy and says, look, why can we still hear him? You didn't smash him good enough. And the gang guy goes, yeah, we did him good enough. And he's like, nah. And he goes in, trying to crack this guy's head open like it's a coconut, just crack, until
You can hear it.
until he looks dead on the floor. So I go back to my cell, and then there's a announcement, lock down, everybody lock down, because the guards on a security walk had seen it. This guy's getting carried out on a stretcher, and there's not just blood coming out of his head, there's yellow stuff coming out of his head.
Brain fluid, I guess?
There was another one where the head of the Mexican gang lived next door to me. And he had 2 cellmates, and one of them was a Jehovah's Witness, and he was going around preaching all day to people.
Oh, it's pissing people off.
He did it to me as well, handing out, what was it called, the Watchtower, that thing.
Yeah.
And one day he goes to court, and he's on the news. His case for molesting his own niece.
Oh, man.
The head of the gang was so embarrassed that this guy had lived with him for months. They waited until the guard did the security walk so they could torture him until the next security walk, which was about 30 minutes. And I'm sat in that cell next door, and I've never heard noises like it coming from a human being. It sounded like a cat was on fire or something. It started out with the normal sounds of, you know, head getting bashed against the toilet, body getting thrown against the wall, body getting thrown around, you know, normal, don't hit me, and then it just went into the animal kingdom of sounds. Wow. Yeah. By the time he got out that cell before the security walk, he was covered in blood from head to toe, and he banged on the plexiglass door, and it just slid open, and he just collapsed on the floor, and we never saw him again.
You think he died?
You just don't know.
Yeah, wow.
National Geographic researched my Locked Up Abroad episode that they made called Rave in Arizona, and they said that 57 people died in that jail around the time I was there over a 5-year period.
Wow. Is that higher than normal? Sounds higher than normal.
Highest rate of death out of all the jails and prisons in America.
Wow. Jeez. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're coming from the UK, where I don't know what prison's like here, but I assume you don't grow up watching prison stories that are that traumatizing? No.
Prison here, a lot of bad things can happen, and it has got more out of control. But American Arizona jail is off the scale.
Yeah. So you mentioned the gangs intimidate people into making their significant others do favors for the gang. So tell me about that. Is that how things get smuggled in usually?
There was an article in the Phoenix New Times about my case, English Sean's Evil Empire, 12 pages long, Evan had done 10 times more. When the Nazis found this out, yeah, it was good because I was getting a few extra milks and slices of cheese for breakfast, but they started pressuring me to have my girlfriend bring stuff in because I obviously had huge drug connections.
Right, okay.
But what happened was a race riot erupted, and those guys who were pressuring me got moved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So you ended up kind of lucky because they were like, oh, well. And then they just got replaced. Whew. Man. What was... Your family surely was worried about you, right? That you were this smart kid, stockbroker, and then ... you're in the worst prison in America?
My mum was flying over, and to see her all crumpled up in the visitation room, man, breaks my heart. Yeah. She'd been outside, sniffer dogs on them, waiting for hours, hearing the stories of all the Mexican people trying to get in, how sad the stories were. And I just feel blessed that my parents had my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must have been so stressful for them.
It was really stressful. My sister had to have counselling. My mum had a nervous breakdown. Because of that Phoenix New Times article, I asked my aunt not to show it to my mum. She said it was on the internet and my mum read it.
Oh, man.
And she was a college teacher. And she ran up to some of the students after reading it saying, I know you've read the article. I know you know what's going on. They didn't have a clue what she was on about. My dad had to get her from the school, and she'd been on off medication to this day.
Oh, really? So she just had a anxiety attack type of thing?
She had a meltdown. Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, man. It must have been tough to face them when they visited you.
You know what? Visits are like gold.
Yeah.
Visits in your mail are like gold. Just any communication with the outside world. The situation was so intense. Just to get out of your cell and sit with a family member, even though it is in a bizarre environment, you're breathing easy for like an hour or two and communicating with your loved ones and finding out what's going on in the outside world because you've completely lost track of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I would imagine it's just like it's like the only breath of fresh air. So to speak,
totally.
That you have. Wow.
Some prisoners even manage to make babies in visitation.
Is that a conjugal visit, or they just happen to be real slick?
This was before there was so much camera technology and stuff.
Gotcha.
You'd have some guys stand in a row and get it on behind the...
Can you imagine being the woman in that situation? It's like, all right, we're going to do it behind this row of strangers.
One of my mates is a guy called T-Bone, who I met later on, big US ex-Marine. I believe he fathered more than one child in visitation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to get it up in those circumstances. Maybe not.
If you haven't had it for 6 months, you never know.
I feel like mine, I would just shrivel up, literally and metaphorically. I would just be like, nope, I'm done.
One of the hardest parts is going without relations.
Yeah.
And if you've gone without it, you're like in heat, kind of basically.
Sure. Jeez. You hear about all like the prison rape and stuff. Is that? I mean, that's a bad prison. So I assume if it happens at all, it's happening there.
Can I be extreme in my stories?
For
then?
sure. Yeah.
Way
yeah.
more extreme than I've been so far.
Yeah. Because this might get demonetized, but it's like whatever, you know. It's
so
worth it.
I met a
on
trans,
YouTube.
a 6.5-foot charismatic trans prisoner, and she had a tough boyfriend at the time. But she told me her history from decades earlier. And she said when she first came in, she clicked up with the gang, Blood In, Blood Out, AB, the Aryan Brotherhood. And
They had a transsexual in.
no,
their
when she
gang.
first came in, she wasn't there.
Oh,
she was
I
a
see.
big 6.5-foot guy
Gotcha.
when she first came in.
6 foot.
This was decades
6.
before I met her. She was collecting debts, I think, for the AB, and it's Blood In, Blood Out, and they use people up and brutalise them, and she got gang raped multiple times. And I said, what happened? She said, the first time was a gang rape. They beat me up, knocked me unconscious, raped me while I was unconscious, and shoved things inside my body.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what did they shove inside your body? A broomstick.
Aye.
I said, well, how did you know if you were unconscious that they'd put a broomstick inside you? And she said when she went to the toilet afterwards, she could tell by what came out.
Wow.
She said, I sat in my cell for weeks, for months, waiting for the scars to go away. There's nothing you can do. If you report it, you're a snitch. They'll put you in a dungeon for years for your own protection. You can do absolutely nothing other than can kill the perpetrators. The victim is labelled a rat, a punk, and considered less than human. I said, well, then how did you stop it? And she said, I started standing up for myself. I started fighting back. I was ruthless. You've got to be ruthless. Now, she hadn't told me the truth as what she'd done at the time. I had to get that off some other prisoners. So what Xena had done, she was studying anatomy and she came up with an idea. And the next 2 times the gang came to rape Xena, the first member of the gang to put his hand on her, she plucked his eyeball out so it was dangling from the optic nerve.
Oh, man.
When I first heard that, I didn't even think it was possible.
I didn't even. Yeah, it sounds fake.
It does sound fake.
Mm-hmm.
So I clicked up with a guy, a martial arts guy in prison, and he told me to join a dojo when I got out, which I did. I continued, I did karate. And as you go up in karate, they teach you what's called bird beak strike, where you just go in, take the eye out, comes out. Now, when the eye comes out like that, there's fluid that can come out through through the skull into the socket, and the eye might not. That coats the brain, and the eye might not necessarily go back in. And
Oh, man.
but it is a lethal thing that people who are at the top levels of martial arts and close protection know these kind of moves. But that's what she was doing. So after doing that twice, they left her alone, but they moved on to some of her friends. One friend, the gang raped him, shoved a light bulb in his backside, and made bets on who would smash it first.
Oh, wow.
And that prisoner committed suicide afterwards. Another one was gang raped, held down. They got a shovel from the work crew, cut his head off. And when the head was finally off, they positioned it in an area of the prison where the rival gangs would see it to make the point that they were the most violent and ruthless out of all the gangs. And again, that was the Aryan Brotherhood. This was years before I was in prison, mind you, before they had all the cameras and everything. And I think 60 Minutes did a program about Arizona prison and said it was the most dangerous part of real estate in the whole country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. Oh, my gosh. That's the book. These stories and the book make you, if you are thinking of doing something that would land you in jail, not that I was keen on going to prison beforehand, but you read this book and you are like, no, never, will do nothing to ever possibly risk going in there. Just the cockroaches story alone. You want to talk about the cockroaches a little bit? You must even have nightmares about these
I
cockroaches.
could do half an hour on cockroach stories, but let's just say that 1 year in, I asked for a bail reduction. My bail was $750,000.
Yeah.
The judge doubled it to 1.5 million, so it got moved over to maximum security.
Okay. Just as a big screw you, they doubled it.
Yeah,
basically.
the prosecutor filed 12 more charges against me with an additional bond and all this stuff. Anyway, it's about 2 in the morning when I get to my cell in max security. Mm-hmm. 2-man cell, that's an improvement. But I'm wondering why my cellmate is asleep on the top bunk. I'll never forget it. I can just see it right now. It's ingrained. I walk in, he's got a sheet wrapped around him and stuff. And it's dark. But there's like this weird movement on the walls and the ceiling. I'm thinking, what's going on? Something drops off the ceiling and bounces off my shoulder. Like, what the hell was that?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the walls and ceiling. I think something's not right here. Perhaps because I've been awake so long, my eyes are playing tricks. So I put my face right up to the wall, and it's covered in cockroaches, like the classic American cockroach, size of like an almond nut, and they're just swirling around everywhere. Now I go to look at where the brackets are for my bunk, where they're screwed into the wall, and there's a big old hole, and they're just pouring onto the bunk where I'm supposed to go to sleep. And then I look at my cellmate, and I realise now, because it's the desert, why has he got his sheet wrapped all the way around him?
Yeah.
So in the end, that's what you got to do. You got to wrap the sheet around you so you look like the mummy and leave a breathing hole. It does keep them off you, but it traps the heat to your body.
Yeah.
You got all these bleeding, skin infections and bed sores and itching. When you've got that sheet around you, it's torture. So you end up just throwing the sheet off and letting them crawl on you. They don't bite.
Right.
They tickle your feet, your legs. To this day, if my girlfriend tries tickling my hands, I flinch.
Yeah.
Because I woke up so many nights with them tickling my hands, just casting them off like that.
Oof.
They get on your face, mouth, nose. But their favourite place of all is going in your ears to eat your earwax. It's like funny to them. I had a neighbour, and I know that because if I got like a bit of cloth to try and clean my ears out, and the ears were filthy, and then hung it under the sink, they'd get on it and they'd pulse where the earwax was. So the neighbour who was asthmatic, he wakes up one morning out of breath, grabs his inhaler,
Shoots the cockroach into his mouth.
Yeah, into his mouth, his throat. Starts freaking out, saying he can feel it move around inside him.
Oh my God!
He's trying to throw it up, and it's stuck inside, and it won't even come out. Even in the daytime, there was so many of them. The fellas were doing cockroach races, gambling on the winner. And at night time, they'd try and trap them with like peanut butter and stuff.
Yeah.
And they'd come down the stairs and with them all the dead ones, and they'd empty them into the trash can under the stairs. It didn't matter how many we killed. They owned the building.
Yeah.
They're very tricky. I've got my Amerifresh toothpaste that I'm cementing the cracks with. And there was a moment in time where I got moved to this cell, and it was quite bad. And I used all my Amerifresh to cement. And then 2 days later, they moved me again to one that was even worse. And I had no Amerifresh.
Oh, no.
It smelled nice and minty, and it was keeping them out. So at this new one, they're just coming in full force. And if you try and kill them, they release like a chemical scent. And these warrior ones run under your door like, what the F, backing up the other one.
Oh, really?
The pregnant ones have got this, it looks like a little piece of a worm with all the babies in. And if they detach that or attach it under your bunk, I would find them attached to books and stuff like that, and I'd put them in the toilet. But if you don't spot them, all the little babies come out and they're just running everywhere. And there was like albino ones, like white ones. And you have to live in harmony with your cellmates over time, and you learn all of their characteristics and mannerisms, and you just get on with it. You're just reading books and they're just going by you. You've got your commissary tied up so they can't eat through the paper to try and get your peanut butter. And you're just taking countermeasures so that, once they come out at night, they'll eat anything in their path. Nail filings, hair, earwax, paper.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's really gross. I'm surprised they don't eat things like attached to your skin or hair.
They do.
Oh, they do?
They get on you to do all that.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. They pretend to be dead as well. So I've seen them just slammed flat, and I'll be reading a book, and an hour later I'm looking over, and the thing's reforming itself, and then walking away like the Terminator. In the toilet, they pretend to be dead in the water, and what they're doing is they're holding oxygen to themselves in this position that they look like they're dead. And then once they get access to go again, they go again.
Good God, man.
They're really clever.
It's really great. This is like being in a medieval torture dungeon or something like that. Like, this is what you'd expect prison in 1520
Dante.
to be like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
God, you actually seem to have a really good memory of specific days, conversations, and stuff like that. Did you take notes on what was happening?
Yeah, I was so lucky, Jordan.
Okay.
That Claudia, who stayed with me for the duration of the Maricopa County jail period, which was 26 months, I wrote to her up to 2 to 3 times a day. And she kept all those letters under her bed. And when I got released at the end of the sentence, she FedExed them over. So all the details of the cockroaches that day, what I've been doing with them, conversations, prisoners and guards, the noise of the shower dripping at night, the men snoring. I would never have had that treasure trove of detail if it wasn't for Claudia keeping all those letters. And then I put those in my books.
Yeah.
Hard Time is the jail one if people are interested.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And man, you wanted to read 1,000 books in prison, right?
So early on then, I said to myself, I think this was around the time I got sentenced, Pat, which was 26 months in. And I knew I was going to do another 6 years total.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to myself, oh, that's 6 years total. Maybe I'll be asleep for a third of it. That gets it down to 4. 3 or 4 years is like a university degree. I could turn this into the educational opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I plan to read over 1,000 books throughout my incarceration, because before prison, all I ever read was stock market books. I thought fiction was frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I knew everything. What else is there to learn? And once I did start to read, I realized how little I knew and how much there was to learn. I went on this fantastic journey through literature.
Wow. Wow. So did you make it through 1,000 books?
Yeah. In 2006, I read 268. I wrote them all down and rated them. And I was keeping account. I did over 1,000. I learned a lot of philosophy and psychology.
Yeah.
And those changed my worldview and helped me go inside myself and address the reason I got involved in drugs and crime.
Wow. How are your eyes?
When I got out of prison, I was short-sighted because of all of the reading.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to need glasses. But to get to my gym and karate and stuff, I had to do quite a long walk because I didn't have a car at that point from where I lived through this park every single day, 2 or 3 times a day. And I believe that looking at those long distances got my muscle back in gear without me having to fall back on having glasses.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You repaired your vision. Your body repaired itself.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Did the gangs ever come for you? You know, like, were they ever like, all right, you're a liability, or we don't like it? I mean, it seems like you can't avoid danger for the whole time.
So when I started blogging from the jail and then blogging throughout the prison part of it as well, I turned it away from not so much being about the conditions, but being about the stories of the prisoners.
So you're writing a blog in prison.
Yeah, in the beginning it was smuggled out of the maximum security Madison Street Jail, and it's all timestamped. People can go back online, John's Jail Journal, JONS, and read the original entries. And it was all the conditions. And then I started writing about the characters. And what happened was some of the prisoners were getting letters and books sent in, but other prisoners were getting a bit jealous and telling people, yeah, Attwood's writing about you and he's putting it online. And guys would run into my cell, say, you effing writing about me, I'm going to effing smash you. You know, I ain't giving you no permission to put anything out there about me. There was another occasion where I wrote, my cellmate had greenlit it, and he shouldn't have really because he was street smart. I wrote about how the prisoners were making homemade syringes from items you could buy from the inmate store, the commissary. Now, bear in mind, some of the places I was housed, 90% of the prisoners were injecting heroin.
Wow.
2/3 had hepatitis C from sharing dirty needles, which was slowly killing them. Yeah, really sad. And I started to write, it was called Rig Builders, this blog entry. It got put online, and a shot caller on a neighbouring yard put out a green light to have me attacked or killed for putting this out there. It's like snitching. That was his viewpoint of it. Now, concurrently, I was writing the life story for a guy called Two Tonys, old school Italian mafia. He was part of the Bonanno crime family under Bill Senior, and he ended up opening the first discotheque in Alaska, and it ends up in this like story of, it's like Sons of Anarchy versus The Sopranos.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wrote his life story. It's called The Mafia Philosopher, Two Tonys, if people want to get it. And every day I was sneaking into his cell to get his life story written down in my little chicken scratch. And then I was smuggling it out through the British Embassy so that they couldn't open it, and because he was confessing to murders and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Now, when this guy put out this green light to have me attacked, two Tonys, there was 2 or 3 days, people were trying to get in my cell, attack me, all this stuff, but I managed to keep them at bay. While 2 Tonys was calling a favour to get it squashed.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite hairy. My parents were visiting me. It was very stressful. I thought I was going to get done in. But in the end, 2 Tonys called in a favour and got it squashed.
Wow.
And 2 Tonys, when I said goodbye to him at the fence, he had tears in his eyes. And he told me I'd been like the son he'd never had.
That's something, eh?
Yeah.
That's really something.
Yeah.
No one's ever shown these guys any sort of real goodwill.
He was doing 144 years for leaving the dead bodies of rival gangsters from Arizona to Alaska. He described himself as a whacker of men.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. What are the politics of a hit in prison? Like, I know it's a complicated question, but it seems like, well, we're going to kill you. Well, actually, this other guy kind of likes him, so he's going to call in a favor. What does that mean? Who do you talk to? Why do they owe you that? Do they have to respect it? I mean, there's a lot going on here, a lot of moving parts.
It's politics all day long.
Yeah.
So, in general, if you wanted to hit someone in prison, it depends on the status of that person in the prison hierarchy. You could just give someone a $50 bag of heroin and they'd kill someone for you. But if you kill someone who is higher up in the hierarchy, that's going to come back on you.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's connected to everyone else. So you've got to ascertain who someone is before you do a hit on them. Because if you hit an important person, you're going to get hit.
Oh, man. Yeah, but so you don't want to be a nobody in prison, though, because then you can get killed for $50.
Happens all the time. There was one guy towards the end of my sentence that they tried to kill him. They tried to poison him. They tried to hang him. And I think they killed him in the end. And some of the guys I was sat with in the chow hall they all ended up for the death penalty.
Yeah. Oof. Man.
Yeah.
I'm guessing I know the answer to this question, but do you think prison rehabilitates people at all? I'm guessing you didn't see a whole lot of that in there. I mean, it sounds like you had a life-changing experience, but it was because of what you did. It wasn't because of them torturing everybody in prison.
Because I'm a self-starter
Yeah.
with good family support and an education, I maximized the situation in terms of education and writing all these stories down for these books. But in general, what I saw is it's someone comes in who's young, perhaps misguided, for a lower level offense, even if it was like weed back then was almost $1 million arrests a year. They click up with the gang because they're going to think their booty's going to get taken. They're terrified. The gang puts all these neo-Nazi tattoos on them, gets them on heroin. If you put a swastika on someone's forehead and they go for a job interview, they're coming right back to the gang.
Yeah.
The jail knows if they allow it to be gang and drug-infested mayhem, they're coming back to the jail. As soon as they come back to the jail, it was $60,000 a year per person of taxpayers' money to house that person. So by allowing it to be drug and gang-infested mayhem, giving them $50 on the gate when they get released saying, have a nice day, they know they're coming right back. It keeps the gang in business and it keeps the jail in business.
That's horrifying. I mean, you mentioned everybody you blogged about went back to prison. Everybody.
They all do, yeah, or they die.
Or they die, yeah. And we have barely scratched the surface of how horrible this place was. You mentioned there's disease guys with hepatitis C and open sores doing food prep. There's one scene where it's already going to get demonetized. There's one scene that I physically had to fast forward to because I couldn't listen. This has never happened to me in the history of listening to anything. The transgender woman in prison who decided to cut out her own testicles. I actually felt sick and I thought I was going to throw. And again, I am not that guy who's like, oh, I can't listen to this. I could not listen to that. I had to skip through it, but I got enough of the gist of it. That was the only book in my entire life where I was like, I can't listen to this. I can't listen to this account of cutting off your own balls.
In the book Prison Time, we put the entire letter from that trans prisoner in there, and it's excruciating detail.
Yeah.
What she did. I mean, I can give a summary if you want for the listeners.
Yeah, a little sneak preview of what it's like to cut your own testicles out.
So this prisoner wakes up one morning, drinks a cup of coffee, no painkillers whatsoever. She's got a Mosby's medical dictionary, felt tip pen, draws lines on her scrotum where she's going to get the razor blade on.
I'm already feeling it. Oh, man.
Cuts the scrotum open. The testes are on branches called vas deferens, and the spermatic cord. So she goes to one side and starts to sever through this branch in the spermatic cord.
I probably should say, don't listen to this if you have kids in the car or you're about to eat, but I think I'm already too late.
One testicle comes off. The other testicle must know what's about to happen and retracts inside this person's body.
Oh, my God.
So now she's had to put her hand into her guts to try and find this other testicle. And she's like feeling mushy things and organs and stuff, and this testicle's, it's frightened. It does not
nowhere to be
want
found,
yeah. So where she's got it tied off to stop the blood comes undone. Blood starts spraying multiple feet across this cell. She realizes this is a one-shot deal now, and the pain's starting to kick in.
Yeah.
She's still scrambling around with the mushy inside, trying to find the testicle and having no. And more blood's coming out, and she's losing consciousness. And in the end, another prisoner spots her, and she gets heli evac'd to a hospital where they save her life. She was on suicide watch for a year, and then she cut the other one off. And what she said to me was, she feels as if she is a woman trapped in a man's body.
Sure.
And by stopping the testosterone and getting the estrogen smuggled in, she feels more at peace with herself. That prisoner was released after 30 plus years, just over a year ago, I think. And she contacted me, and I sent her some money to try and help her, but she was institutionalized, didn't understand technology, didn't understand the internet,
Yeah.
depressed, and decided to commit suicide by cop. And she went out and robbed a store and just stayed there and threw the money on the floor. And when the cops gone, she just pulled a gun on him, and they shot her dead.
That's truly awful.
Truly awful, yeah, really sad.
Yeah, I really sympathize with somebody like that who, yeah, I mean, that's imagine being at that point in your life. That's really, really, really terrible.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, this is, I assume you've changed your mind about the effects of drugs and they're not so fun anymore, right?
I scare the living daylights out of school kids now with talks.
Yeah.
Go in.
You scare living daylights out of adults. Just letting you know. That is the effect of this podcast, especially that last story.
Some of the stories you've heard today, the kids here, like the gangs, the cockroaches, the food, the bed sores, the heat, the itchiness, and even the cocky ones, by the time I get into all this stuff, they're on the edge of their seats.
Yeah.
And the teachers tell me, you know, the kids who stay behind and ask the most questions are the hardest to reach students.
Yeah.
And I get emails from kids years later saying, you know, I was backpacking in Indonesia and I saw your Locked Up Abroad episode. And I thought I would email you and tell you that when you came to my school, I was on a bit of a bad path.
Yeah.
And I decided not to go down that road. And thanks to your talk, you know, my life has probably turned out in a different way. And that's what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, they're backpacking in Indonesia. They're not in their third prison stint or their third jail stint.
Yeah. One kid was so inspired, she went on to do a criminology degree at Winchester University, and the parents invited me to the graduation.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I assume Winchester, is that that's in the United States?
No, here.
Oh, because I was going to say you couldn't go if it's in the United States.
I was deported and banned for life from America in 2007.
Sure. Yeah, so you can't. You can only attend. I assume the talks you give in the United States are on Zoom.
No, I don't do any talks.
Oh, you
in
don't?
the United States, I'm banned.
I just figured they could have you Zoom in.
Well, no one's invited me yet.
No, okay, not yet. I mean, it's only a matter of time now. Jeez. Do you think you traded one addiction for another? Because you do mention you go to the gym multiple times per day. You do yoga and all that stuff.
All right.
One's healthier than the other.
When I was in the last 2 or 3 years of the incarceration, I had this brilliant therapist I called Dr. O in prison time, and he was into Eastern philosophy, and his thing was, you know, you're reading all these books, Epictetus, Aurelius, all this stuff, Nietzsche, come in with your best quotes and we'll discuss them in the context of how you can use them in your life.
It's like Ryan Holiday. You know Ryan Holiday?
No.
He writes about all this stoicism stuff.
he?
I'm surprised you
probably
don't
like
have
him,
all those books.
I'd like him.
Yeah.
So I was reading all the originals, and he said to me, Shaun, if you've got an addictive personality, adrenaline junkie like you've got to view it as energy. You are choosing to put your energy into these negative addictions, racing around in my car high on crystal meth, hanging out with all these gangsters, all this stuff that could have got me killed. What he said, because if that rave music kicks in, you get that. But what he said, when those moments happen, he's put a circuit breaker in my head. I realize now it's just energy, and I can choose to take that energy and put it into positive activity. So I've got my yoga, my gym, jogging, swimming, all the other stuff. And that's what I do, and that's what keeps me sane. And I think a lot of people fall back on pills from doctors.
Yeah.
We are hunter-gatherers. 2/3 of the human body is designed for movement.
Yeah.
If you're not moving, you're destabilizing the physical, which destabilizes the mental. I've done 4 or 5 TED Talks now, and one of them is how facing 200 years taught me about happiness, and the other one is on overcoming fear and anxiety.
Oh, we'll link those in the show notes.
Yeah, and it's all about doing physical stuff to get those endorphins cascading instead of being wrapped up, depressed, and releasing the cortisol.
Yeah, yeah. Man, you talk about your release, and it's like you were like an alien when you got out of there.
Oh, my goodness.
Couldn't eat regular food. Tell me about when you get out. Like, how do you sort of go, I'm back in society now? You said you were asking permission to use the bathroom on the airplane. They're just laughing at you.
If you want to use the clip from my channel of me getting picked up from the airport by my parents, where I'm all stubbled out and bug-eyed, and I'm hugging my mom and sister, and they're crying. And then we're in the car afterwards, and my sister's explaining what texting is. And you can see, looking at my face, this guy looks like he's come out of some Siberian
Castaway.
gulag.
It's like Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Solzhenitsyn.
Yeah.
In the Milosevic.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So you type the message into the phone, and it flies through the air and lands on someone else's phone? How does that work?
I'm seeing all these kids on the streets with phones and stuff. I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
They took me for Indian food, and I tried chicken tikka masala, my former favorite, but because of the Red Death mystery meat slop, I had flashbacks and I couldn't eat it, and I've stayed vegetarian ever since.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I went back to my hometown, went to the fish and chip shop to try and order a curry and chips, and I couldn't understand their broad accent in my hometown. They had to bring someone out from the back who talked to me very slowly, like I was a nut job, to get my order in.
Your own hometown
I couldn't understand
accent?
my own hometown accent. I've been gone for 17 years.
So you could only understand American.
So when I got
accents?
to America, I talk like this. By gum love, fish, chips and peas and salt and vinegar. But I had to change how I speak.
I'm not sure what you just said. I heard salt and vinegar.
Americans were coming up to me asking me, hey, are you Australian, man?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So I speak the way I do now because when I went to America, especially working on the phones, I had to be clear fast to make money and to chat up chicks. So
yeah, there's a thing with the English accents that goes, it starts off and it hits peak charming, and after that you just don't understand what the person is saying. Yeah.
Yes.
And the further north you go, the harder it is for us to understand what you're talking about.
Try Glasgow. We just been to Glasgow.
But by the time you get to Sheffield, I'm going, wait, say that again? Say that again?
So, it was surreal going from my hometown and in my parents' house. Now, my blood, I don't know if your blood thins or thickens when you're in the desert, but back in cold old England, I had 2, 20 tog duvets wrapped around me, a beanie in all my clothes, and I was still shivering at night trying to sleep.
Yeah, and your friends are all out in shorts and T-shirts. That's what it's like moving to California. My dad's like, what happened to you, man? I'm like, I don't know. It's never below 65 degrees during the daytime. I need jackets.
But just being able to walk down a high street and buy a banana was the heights of ecstasy for me.
I bet.
You're just going around blissed out for days.
Yeah.
It doesn't last, but some of it has still lasted. I appreciate sleep. I appreciate food. I appreciate giving my mum a hug. I appreciate having a good relationship with my partner. I've had a baby now, 9-month-old baby, just hugging him. And one of the things that 2 Tonys taught me, actually, because one of his favourite books was A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, where they're fighting over fish eyeballs in the soup to try and stay alive in the gulag, where if you refuse to work, you're hung from a tree or dragged to death by a horse or thrown off a cliff, where their noses and ears are falling off because of frostbite. When anyone complained about anything where I was housed, 2 Tonys would laugh. You're complaining because your breakfast's cold. Ivan was fighting over fish eyeballs in the soup. There's always someone worse off. So now I've got that yardstick for the rest of my life, whereby no matter what happens, I'm not in a cell facing 200 years with cockroaches trying to crawl over me at night time.
Yeah.
Nothing can ever get as bad as that.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Man, do you ever miss anything about prison? Like maybe even just the people.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I totally
Some of
miss
the
the
people.
camaraderie. When you're going through something as intense as that with people, as much as I can describe it to you, they're the only people who can truly understand it.
Mm-hmm.
You could kind of like sense some of it, but they understand it because they were there with me. It's like you're bonded for life with those people. And that's why I pledge through my activism and my blog to keep campaigning for human rights. And I'm not saying prisons should be holiday camps, but give them rehabilitation, give them job skills, give them education like the Scandinavians do, who've got the lowest crime and reoffending in the world. But hey, when the private prison contracts are in the tens of billions a year,
Yeah.
when Corrections Corporation of America was boasting in its annual report to their shareholders, our profit growth is guaranteed because they keep coming back, there's no interest in rehabilitating them in America. And it's an evil system to have companies profiting and lobbying for laws that house kids who are out taking drugs, who need some guidance, who need some mentorship, and those kids getting thrown into an environment where they're scared of getting butt raped, so they join a neo-Nazi gang and they become a heroin addict and they're a client for the state for the rest of their lives. It's absolutely evil and disgusting.
Yeah, it's really horrifying. I mean, I knew prison was bad. I never heard of anything that's as bad as what you wrote about in your books, to the point where I was questioning, this can't be real. This can't be real. But then when I tried to verify stuff about the prison, it all came up again in court cases, came up again in people who had gotten out of there, came up in testimony. So if you'd fabricated it, you backed it up better than anybody I've ever seen.
Let me say one more thing on that.
Sure.
Some of the most extreme stories I've told you today pertain to prison rape.
Yeah.
And there was an act introduced called the Prison Rape Elimination Act, PREA. And under PREA, they had to start teaching the prisoners how not to get raped. So you go to a class, you get a little piece of paper under your door, rape class today, and you go
Rape
to the
class.
class
Jesus.
and you watch a video, and there are predators, and basically the young people come in, they're hungry, the new arrivals. And if they take food from the predators, like the Snickers bar under the pillow, whatever it is, then the predator comes and says later on, you got to pay for that now. Well, how am I going to pay for it? Got no money. Well, then you're going to get stabbed up unless you go in that cell and do it where that guy says.
Oh, man.
And once they do that, they're turned out, they're rented out as prison prostitutes, they're punks, there's no coming back from it. The conclusion of the rape class was, to stop rape, you have to report it. If you report anything, you're a snitch.
Right.
KOS. A young prisoner was raped right after rape class, no one reported a single thing.
Sure. So don't eat the Snickers bar. Least of your concerns, though, at that point, I guess. Jeez.
Yeah.
Don't eat the Snickers bar, kids.
Yeah.
Better yet, stay out of prison.
Keep your day jobs, folks. Don't get gangsteritis. That's whereby you've watched too many movies like Scarface. It ends in the prison, police, death, the nut house. My mum would never break down. My sister had to have counselling. Most of my mates are dead.
I'm glad to meet you in person, alive and well, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming out to London to do this, and I really appreciate your openness and, of course, your time.
Really appreciate you having me on, brother. Cheers. Take
Cheers.
care. Thank you.
Thank you for checking out this entire episode on YouTube. If you want to follow up on this topic, check out our podcast feed or visit us on our website at jordanharbinger.com, where you can learn more about our guest and dive even deeper into what we discussed today. And remember, YouTube only has about a quarter of the episodes that we release here on the Jordan Harbinger Show audio feed. Any podcast app should have us. Check out the links in the description where you'll find access to all of our shows that don't appear on YouTube, such as Skeptical Sunday, where we debunk topics like crystal healing, GMOs, conspiracy theories, homeopathy, tipping, and even on lawns to find out if they're backed by science and or logic. Also, our Feedback Friday episodes where we help people escape from cults, get raises at work, and take all manner of questions from you, the audience, and some of that stuff is dicey. Every episode of The Jordan Harbinger Show has something useful that you can take away and apply in your own life and help you navigate what I know can often seem like the overwhelming and paralyzing challenges of modern life. Thank you for watching, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe.